Throughout our lives, we've experienced the unexplainable, from bright apparitions to dark entities, changing our perspectives on the afterlife. Now we seek answers and intend to capture evidence of paranormal existence. These are our paranormal experiences. It is the 1970s, and most of the cultural upheaval and political drama in Australia continued into the new decade. Perspectives on immigration, sexual morality, the role of women, environment and war were undergoing radical changes. These changing perspectives led to a change in government as Australians grew tired of 23 years of conservative rule. Over the decade, such changes led to the abolition of the white Australian policy, the right to equal pay and maternity leave for women, and some progress in land rights for the indigenous. War was also a major concern. The Vietnam War, which had been raging since 1962 for Australia, failed to achieve any results and was challenged globally with widespread protesting.
Australian soldiers first fought overseas in the Sudan War in 1882, and 6 of them were killed. Then at the turn of the century, it was the Boer War. 518 lost their lives. In World War I, more than 50,000 Australians died, nearly 8,000 of them at Gallipoli. Australians went overseas again in World War II, to Greece and Crete, the Western Desert, to Malaya and New Guinea. 27,000 did not return. And now Australians are fighting close to home in South Vietnam as Australia meets her treaty obligations. But there are some who believe Australia should not be there. And as these demonstrators marched in Martin Place, we asked them why they were marching. 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, stop the war, negotiating. Hands up, Vietnam!
Greek for me, not understand.
Why are you here?
No Vietnam. Yeah. No good. Come here, Australia.
Why am I marching? Because against send the troops to South Vietnam.
Say because I'm opposed to the war in Vietnam.
Because I'm against the thing.
Why? Because I don't believe in war, full stop.
I'm marching because I'm against the decision of the government to send more troops to Vietnam.
Why am I marching? Because I don't believe in conscription or the war in Vietnam.
And I believe in Vietnam more, but not in conscriptions being sent there.
Because I have 4 sons and I don't want to see them conscripted to Vietnam.
A lot of damn fools. If the Vietnamese got here, they'd be the first to scream.
Over 50,000 Australians would serve in Vietnam, either voluntarily or under conscription. The unpopular war was in a sense finally won or lost on the Homefront in 1972, as Gough Whitlam, Australia's then Prime Minister, called for Australia's withdrawal from Vietnam. While wars and cultural and political upheavals raged on, according to Roberts, the 1970s were arguably the golden UFO era in Tasmania. Close encounters, landings, car paces, auto stops, and supporting casts of nocturnal lights kept their UFO centre busy. Below are some of the strange experiences that were reported. Reported in the Hobart Mercury, it was 2 AM when Mr. Archer was awakened by a loud humming noise which sounded like a big generator. Getting out of bed, he looked out the window but could not see anything. The next morning, his children called him outside to see a strange flattened area, approximately 150 metres across a nearby river. The flattened area was not noticed prior to the event. The grass around the area was originally 30 to 40 centimetres in height, and the flattened area measured roughly 10 by 5 metres and was in the shape of a 3-leaf clover with 6 indentations. After the public release of the experience, more sightings occurred, 2 near the original site and 3 north of the house. The 7th of December, 1971. During the day, Mr. de Blouse in Lachlan reported that he had witnessed a strange object almost crash into his hop field. At first, he thought it was a light aircraft that was about to make a crash landing, but as the supposed aircraft became clearer, the object appeared as a hat-shaped glow, with 2 amber lights remaining stationary above in the sky. As this strange phenomenon was occurring, a nearby motorcyclist witnessed the UFO, as well as a neighbour who saw the UFO's orange glow. The UFO continued to fly overhead, heading north and fading away as it travelled towards New Norfolk. A follow-up investigation by UFOic revealed that there were no aircraft or satellite movements to account for during the reported sighting. About a week later, on the 14th, and in the local area of New Norfolk, 3 witnesses spotted another low-flying object to their west. The UFO was a vertical silver dish with a domed orange top and had 2 white lights at each end. The UFO changed position, presenting more of a view from above before making a faint whizzing noise and climbing out of sight over Peppermint Hill. But this wasn't the end of a string of strange events. About 5 minutes later, residents as far as Waste Plenty were stunned when they heard a loud, mysterious explosion. A few years later, in 1974, Roberts explains that this year was full of non-stop actions and strange cases. The 25th of February, 1974. A policeman who was travelling home near Westaway found his car lit up by an unexplained light from above. Pulling over, he observed a white disc with a vague orange ring around it. But it doesn't stop there. Pulling himself together, he continued to make his way home. The object was still in sight and seemed to anticipate his route back home. As they both neared New Norfolk, heading southward, the disc gained elevation and sped off into the distance. 27th of February 1974. A few days later, 2 sightings in the north of Tasmania occurred back to back within a matter of minutes. At 9:45 PM, 2 motorists witnessed an orange triangle rapidly approaching their car from the west. The UFO came within 200 metres and at an estimated height of 25, before disappearing over the nearby hill to the north. A second motorist, travelling on the same road but about 8 kilometres to the east, spotted a strange orange light to his north. As this UFO kept pace with his car, he pulled over to observe the distant object. The motorist estimated that it had to be at least 6 metres in width. As he continued driving afterwards, the UFO disappeared. Over the next few months, there were countless encounters around Tasmania, especially in the north and northeast. These strange experiences by motorists, hunters and pilots consisted of seeing these strange objects, which often emitted light, right before they experienced engine malfunctions, radio disruptions, and even losing control of their vehicles. Dogs went haywire, and witnesses even reported seeing distant lights, which they were presumed to be the cause. 1974 just kept on getting stranger. 2 fishermen at Lake Echo set up fishing rods at the edge of the lake at dawn. They later noticed a yellow saucer with a dome on top of it on a hill to the northeast. The saucer then descended onto the lake itself, where it hovered for around 7 minutes. The fishermen, trying to make sense of the situation, noticed that the lake had risen rapidly, covering their rods in the lake. The strange object then suddenly sped off to the east and was gone within a matter of seconds. As the morning progressed, the 2 fishermen saw large logs that had previously been underwater, but were now on shore. The northeast flap of 1974 probably peaked with the Prairie and Tyann sightings in September of that year. Both cases involve motorists encountering UFOs in isolated country locations. September the 16th, 1974. At 9:15 PM on the Antons Bay Road, Mrs. Richards was returning home with her 2 children. They were about 7 kilometres away from St. Helens, and it was dark and drizzly. As they approached the bridge, the witnesses noticed that the car radio began giving off static and that the sky ahead began to light up. Crossing the bridge, the car lost power, and then everything from the car headlights to the dashboard lights cut out completely. Mrs. Richards attempted to start the car, but a deafening sound followed up by an electric shocking sensation penetrated their bodies. At the same time, an unrecognisable suffocating odour filled the car. Scrambling out, they fled down the road on foot. Mrs. Richards and the children reached the nearest house some 15 minutes down the road. The resident noticed the distressful event and assisted in collecting Mrs. Richards' car. When they got there, the car was in perfect working order and nothing strange besides a worn bonnet was found. The car was later taken to a local mechanic and found nothing wrong with the vehicle. After the event, Mrs. Richards also suffered from swollen arms and fingers, numb face, and a red mark above her eyebrow. Doctors attributed them to an extreme emotional reaction to something. However, the Richards family's strange UFO experience doesn't end there. Prior to Mrs. Richards' arrival back home on the 16th after the experience, Mr. Richards noticed a loud roar and strange lights in the sky. He later would claim that he was followed home 2 days later by a vibrant yellow banana-shaped object. This UFO then hovered over some trees only 150 metres away from their house before fading away. Gough, a Tasmanian investigation team, did investigate the event and even had the chance to interview the family, but also the mechanic and doctor, who said that the Richards seemed genuinely terrified of something.